Sometimes the tech world doesn't just evolve, it completely explodes. And tonight, we're going to break down one single night where 6 massive stories dropped, totally shifting the game for gaming, hardware, and even the biggest market leaders. All right, let's get into it. So picture this. It's April 14th, 2026. While most of us were probably asleep, a whole series of bombshells dropped that tell a really fascinating story about where everything is headed. We're talking about shocking admissions, bold new promises. This was the night that proved the tech industry never, ever sleeps. So first up, let's talk about the gaming world. On this one night, 2 of the biggest giants had to face some pretty hard truths. For one, it was about their business model. And for the other, it was all about protecting its youngest users. Okay, now this is a quote you almost never, ever see from a top executive. This came from a leaked internal memo, and in it, the new head of Microsoft Gaming, Asha Sharma, was just brutally honest. She said their main product, Game Pass, had gotten way too expensive. I mean, that kind of honesty is incredibly rare, and it's a huge signal that a massive change is coming. So how did we even get here? Well, this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? Back in October 2025, only 6 months earlier, Microsoft literally doubled the price of Game Pass Ultimate, from $15 to $30 a month. And you can guess what happened. Players were furious, subscriptions got canceled. I mean, when competitors like PlayStation Plus Premium are sitting at $18, the value just wasn't there anymore. But see, Sharma's admission wasn't just them saying, oops, it was a promise. The big takeaway here is that Microsoft is now working on a totally new system, something more flexible with multiple tiers. We could be looking at light versions, family plans, basically giving you more choices. And think about it. This isn't just about Game Pass. It could be the blueprint for all digital subscriptions, moving us away from that one-size-fits-all model and into a more personalized world. And on that very same night, another gaming giant, Roblox, made a move that affected a mind-blowing number of people. We are talking 380 million active players every single month, and a huge chunk of them are kids. So after tons of pressure from parents and regulators, Roblox dropped one of the biggest safety updates we've ever seen in gaming. So here's the deal. To use the chat, any user under 13 now has 2 options. First, they can do a quick 5-second video selfie where an AI estimates their age without ever storing the image. Pretty clever. Or second, they can upload a government ID for a real person to review. This is a massive leap forward in trying to keep unverified adults from interacting with kids on the platform. So while the gaming giants were basically in crisis mode, putting out fires and rethinking everything, the hardware world was heating up in a totally different way. On that same night, a new battleground was drawn. Not in software, but in silicon. It was a fight for who would dominate, and it was all about AI power and just insane battery life. Over in India, Asus launched a whole new lineup of AI-ready laptops. And what's really fascinating here is the strategy. For, forever, the PC world has been Intel's kingdom, right? Well, now, for the first time, a huge company like Asus is putting Intel's best chips right next to Qualcomm's new Snapdragon X2 Elite in their top-of-the-line laptops. This isn't just giving you a choice. This is Asus making a very public bet that the mobile-style chips from Qualcomm are finally ready to take on the old guard. And let's just zoom in on that Snapdragon chip for a second because it's really the heart of this whole thing. The magic is its NPU. That's a neural processing unit. Think of it like a dedicated brain just for AI. It can handle 75 trillion operations per second. Now, that number is so huge it's hard to even grasp. So let me put it this way. That's like taking the power of a giant data center supercomputer from a few years ago and sticking it inside your thin little laptop. That's what gives you powerful AI on the device itself, crazy good efficiency for up to 28 hours of battery life, and even designs with no fans at all. It's a whole new vision for what a PC can be. And speaking of battery life, let's flip over to smartphones. On the very same night, Oppo just dropped this number on us, 7,000 milliamp hours. That is a colossal battery, folks. One of the biggest we have ever seen in a mainstream phone. And it's the defining feature of their brand new A6s Pro. And believe me, this isn't just a gimmick. Oppo is promising up to 3 full days of use on one charge. But here's the crucial part. They paired that massive battery with 80-watt fast charging, so you can fill that thing up in under an hour. You add a 50-megapixel selfie camera and a price tag around $300, and what you have is a phone built to solve the single biggest headache for pretty much every user out there. All right, so the last theme from this crazy night is all about fulfillment. While some companies were busy pivoting and others were innovating, 2 other major players just did what they do best. They delivered on their promises and flexed their muscles in their own markets. First, let's look at Apple. New market data for the first quarter of 2026 dropped, and this chart basically says it all.
Apple locked in its spot as the #1 smartphone brand on the planet with 21% of the market. And its biggest rival, Samsung, well, their shares shrank by 6%, dropping them down to 19%.
So what gives? Well, while Samsung was reportedly hitting snags with component shortages for their new Galaxy S26 phones, Apple's supply chain was just humming along. They kept cranking out the iPhone 17 series without a problem. It's a classic case study in how being great at the boring stuff, like logistics, can be just as important as having the flashy new features. And finally, we have a promise that was 6 years in the making. This mysterious sci-fi game, Pragmata, was announced by Capcom way back in 2020. Then came years of delays, radio silence. Fans were pretty much expecting it to get pushed back again. But instead, Capcom announced it was coming out on April 17th, a full week ahead of schedule. In an industry that's famous for delays, that was an absolutely welcome surprise.
So, when you step back and look at it all, what do these 6 totally different stories from one single night really tell us? Well, they paint a really clear picture of an industry that is always, and I mean always, reevaluating itself at lightning speed.
Let's break down the takeaways. Microsoft showed us that even the biggest giants have to listen when their customers scream that a product is too expensive. Roblox proved that user safety, especially for kids, isn't just a feature anymore, it's non-negotiable. Asus basically fired the starting gun on a whole new AI hardware race. Oppo reminded everyone that solving a simple, universal problem like battery life is still a killer strategy. Apple's continued dominance proves that execution is everything. And Capcom, well, they give us all a little bit of hope that sometimes good things come even sooner than you expect.
And that all leaves us with one final thought to chew on. When you see all these companies making these frantic changes, slashing prices, racing for AI dominance, forcing new safety rules, it really makes you wonder, is this insane pace of change really driven by what's best for us, the users? Or are we all just watching these businesses fight for their own survival in the fastest, most brutal game on Earth?